Listen, welcome everyone who's just joined while we were having a series of panics. Welcome to, I don't know what number Zoom we're on, but thank you very much for JM Finn for sponsoring us. Thank you very much, Cheska, for hosting us. Lovely to see you again. Thank you very much, Jim, for coming along. Jim and I haven't seen each other, I don't think, since you opened Racing Break's account at Brighton at the end of last season, which was a great day. And he's won 3 on the bounce since, but you'll hear more about that later. And Charlie's, Fellows and Hills, thank you very much for joining too. I will let Cheska run through how the evening's going to progress, because I've got some chicken to cook, actually some duck. And I think that's sort of what I need to do. I think towards the end, Cheska normally says, and Ed seems to be coming back, and I sort of come back. We're doing a slightly different format this time because we're going to have questions the whole way through. But if people want to ask more questions, just put them on the chat and we'll try and get them done. But thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. JM Finn again. Thank you much for all the old gold people and the Racing Breaks guys and the Fitzdares guys who are all there. I know lots of JM Finn guys. And we will... I'll see you in about an hour's time, and I'll hand over to Cheska.
Actually, Ed, before you go, just quickly on the question front, to clarify for everybody watching, I've got some questions around each day, and then I've got some more general questions targeted to each panelist, and then we're going to have more questions coming up.
We might not have more questions coming up. I mean, we are in uncharted territory because it hasn't worked. We haven't done it like this before, but we think it'll be more engaging for the guys watching, that they've got questions already coming. But let's just kind of see what happens. It could be that I just appear towards the end and say thank you very much.
Okay. Well, I will endeavour to get as many questions answered as possible. So we're going to lose you, Ed, I think, temporarily. You go and do your cooking. But thank you, like Ed said, to Charlie and Jim for joining us this evening. It's really good to have you all here to have a chat about Royal Ascot. Like Ed said, slightly differently, I think we're going to try and get a lot of engagement from everybody watching. We will do a kind of in-focus preview of a big race each day. And then also we'll talk about who's got what running, who's Jim's riding as well. And then we'll try and integrate questions throughout the day, throughout the evening, because I think people like to kind of try and get their questions answered throughout. Talking of questions, lucky I did look at these beforehand, because there are a lot of good questions, including one I particularly liked from Eddie Day: how many lengths is Racing Breaks rider going to win by? Charlie Hills, which we'll come to later. But also one from Ben Dover. Cheeky. But that has been spotted and taken out. So we won't be asking that one.
That was Charlie, by the way. Hills.
Secretly submitting questions.
Trying to trip you up.
Charlie Fellows,
Exactly.
glad to see you're well armed with a glass of something white.
Glass of something white. Quite a large one as well. I thought this might go on for a little bit, so I've filled it right to the brim.
Good. Other Charlie?
Marjorie for me.
Oh,
Oh,
good
nice.
shot.
Nice. And Ed was just saying that you've got a bar set up behind you, have you, outside?
Yeah, it's not very well stocked though.
Oh. I don't believe that. And Jim, how about you? Do you have to?
Empty-handed, but I might have to go and get something.
Just switch the video, switch the camera off. No one will know, and pop and get a drink.
Exactly. Do you have to actually be careful when you're riding day to day or in the lead up to something big?
Yeah, I don't normally drink on a school night, so I'd be very careful now. Yeah, I'd watch it a little bit. Very professional.
Quite right.
What about you, Francesca?
I actually haven't got anything. No.
Ah.
I've kind of had a bit of a late last minute drama because the right teddy wasn't in Teddy's hands as he was going to bed. So I had to
God, yeah.
run around and get it out the washing machine as I was trying to surreptitiously sneak it away and wash it. So I've come badly prepared. Right. So let's crack on, shall we? And we'll kind of integrate questions as we go throughout the hour. So Tuesday, a week today, is the first day of Royal Ascot, which is pretty exciting. And it's a big day for both trainers, Charlie Hills in particular, with some big horses running. We should concentrate on the King's Stand, which is a race that we've been asked to feature in our running order. Oh, and by the way, also Ben Merritt has given some tips for people at home wanting to follow his tips. So his tip in the race is Highfield Princess, who is the current favourite. And I'm just going to try and read out the leading fancies for everyone just to get an idea. So we've got Highfield Princess favourite, Coolangatta, the Aussie Raider, second favourite, Dramatised, third favourite, very good winner at Haydock, Cannonball, another Aussie, fourth favourite, Mannequin for John Ryan, Ladies Church, Love Reigns, I'll keep going. Then we've got Equilateral for Charlie Hills, about 25 to 1 shot. We've also got The Dream for Charlie Fellows, 33 to 1, and Cardam as well in there. Charlie Fellows, are you weather dependent?
Very, very, very weather dependent, especially in that race. Not so much in the Diamond Jubilee, but yeah, if I would much rather run her in the King's Stand over 5, but it would need to be bottomless, which it's almost certainly not going to be at the moment. Looking at it,
so not so important if she runs over 6 furlongs, because
if to run in the King's Stand, I want it to be at least soft. To run in the Diamond Jubilee, I want it to be at least good. Any quicker than good, she can run in. And
her ideal distance in your mind?
I actually think she's best a stiff 5 on really, really soft ground. I think that's her best. That's her best trip. She just loves soft ground. She's deadly on soft ground. Any quicker than that, there's just no point turning up.
Okay, so I feel like we might be seeing you running later on in the week, because there is a bit of rain around Sunday, Monday, but probably not enough to make it go soft.
Yeah, I have a feeling you won't see her at all, but we'll see. We'll see. You never know.
Okay, but we are likely to see Cardam and Equilateral in that race, Charlie.
You know what? I think Equilateral, he's had quite a busy campaign last month, finishing second a couple of times up at Haydock, but he's in good form. And, he's run a couple of really good races in the King's Stand before, so we know he likes the track. And I think we'll give it a go. He's seen some good nicks. So he'd be a big price, but, he does like the track, and it seems to suit him there. So we'll give it a go at a big price, I think. And Cardam, I'd love to try and split them up, to be honest with you, but we ran them at Salisbury over 6, which he hasn't done for a while. But I really wanted to run them over 6 and hold them up, riding completely different to what we were last year. And it seemed to work, and he hit the line well. So if I can, I'll probably look at the Jubilee with him.
And Jim, who's your likely ride?
I don't have a ride in it yet, actually. I was just looking through there now. I mean, I think whatever spare ride you get in, it will be just a leg over, to be honest. I really think Highfield Princess is a good thing in this. I think she's a really top class filly, and she stays 6 furlongs. She'll have improved plenty for that run at York. Obviously, you'll know the Australian form better than most, and I see the other horse, Coolangatta, won the Lightning Stakes, which is always a very good race. But for me, I think Highfield Princess she's going to take a lot of beating, I think.
Yeah, I sort of agree with Jim. She's got the form, hasn't she? We've actually got the Australian Coolangatta here in our stables, and she arrived a few days ago. They seem really happy with her this morning, and she's going to do a bit of work tomorrow morning at Ascot. So that'll be interesting to see how she goes. I think James McDonald's arrived over. He's going to ride her. But she definitely adds a bit of intrigue into the race.
It was quite odd though, wasn't it? Because they said she did a piece of work at Flemington, and the initial reaction in the press was a bit underwhelming. And then the next day they came out and said, actually, no, she's great. All systems go for Royal Ascot. It was an unusual one.
And then the horse that won the trial, that she trialled in at Flemington got stuffed like 1 to 3 on at a country track in a handicap.
Yeah, but I find probably having grown up, training, riding gallops and stuff, I find from an outsider's perspective, trying to understand gallops of a trainer, be it in England or trials in Australia, they're quite hard to read unless you really know what's going on, right? Like who's weighted how, who's asked to do what, etc., right?
Yeah, and Artorias was also in the gallop and finished last. And you looked at it and you were like, well, that's not gone very well. And they came out after saying that they were absolutely over the moon with a piece of work. So yes, it's impossible to read. You don't know what their character. Yeah.
Okay. So we unanimous in thinking Highfield Princess is the one to beat.
Yeah,
I'd say so. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
She's good.
Yeah, she's pretty smart.
Yeah.
Mind you, Dramatize is pretty good.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. More general questions here. What kind of horse do you need to win a race like this?
Fast one.
A fast one.
Mind you, Batash got beat twice, Jim.
He did. Too fast.
I do think you got to stay. You got to be fast, but you have to stay the 5 really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for an Aussie raider, that is something they have to think about because they're used to slightly flatter tracks, whereas this is a stiffer 5 than they'd be used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's questions. How would you ideally prep your horse for this race? Short, fast gallops?
As fresh as they can be, I think, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's some people with sprinters, they say, oh, you get them fit, you run them, and then you do very little with them in between. Is that right?
I guess it slightly depends. The filly that I've got is completely bizarre because the more you run her, the better she gets. She gets way too fresh, and if she's too fresh, then she just runs no good. Whereas the more she ran 14 times as a 3-year-old, I think, and just got better and better and better all year. And she's the same. She's still the same. So it slightly depends on the horse. But Charlie's a phenomenal trainer of sprinters and has trained one of the best sprinters we've seen in a long time, quite recently. And he was fresh as hell, wasn't he? He was a big bullock of a horse.
But yeah, Charlie, you're right. I mean, once you got them racing and they're running well, they seem to thrive off running, don't they?
Yeah.
And yeah, Jim, I tried to look up your rides for the week, but it's too early. So what have you got for us to look forward to on Tuesday?
Obviously, we start off with Charlie's horse, Notice Sebek in the Queen Anne. I actually think he's got a really good chance. I mean, I think I'm sure Charlie agrees. He put in a really massive performance at Newmarket, and it was where he was actually supposed to go to Sandown, and Sandown was called off, and they very kindly put the race back on at Newmarket. But I thought he put in a really big performance, and he probably ran too well. Probably Charlie agreed that by the time he came around to the Lockinge, I thought he was a little bit flat that day. So I'd say he'll go there in good form. He's a very talented horse. He's been a revelation since he's had blinkers on him. Obviously, he's got very close form with Chindit. And I think, he'll run a big race. Obviously, Modern Games deserves to be favourite and is a very good horse and has proved it. But I really like our lad, and I think he'll run a big race. And obviously later on in the card, I ride Muster Bashir for John Gosden in the St James's Palace Stakes. He's a horse we've always thought a lot of, and actually at the beginning of the year, before the Craven, he wasn't really firing. To be fair, I don't think they weren't able to get on the grass in Newmarket, and he went to the Craven and he ran disappointing. Hence why I didn't ride him at York on his next start. But he's clearly turned inside out. John's horses are in great form, John and Thady, so he could run very well. I don't think, I think he's got obviously you've got 2 Guineas winners in there, Irish and English Guineas winners, but this horse he's very classy, and it would be no shock if he upset the apple cart.
I saw him at the Craven. I remember thinking there are a few in that field, probably for the reason you said about not being able to do the work they wanted, that looked quite porky. So possibly that wasn't helping him. And then he improved dramatically, like you say, at York. But Charlie Hills, you've got a very interesting horse also in the St James's Palace, in Cicero's Gift, who a lot of people are very keen on, despite the fact, like Jim's horse, they're taking on 2 Guineas winners.
Yeah, they're 2 similar type of horses, aren't they, coming into the sort of top level. Jim's horse, he looks very impressive. He's got to be well respected for sure. But it's looking a really interesting St James's Palace, isn't it? The Irish Guineas winner, like Jim was saying, and the Irish Guineas winners, they look difficult. They're well experienced, and they're going to be hard to beat. But we just come through a different sort of path, and he was mighty impressive at Goodwood. He's going to get the trip very well. I mean, I could see us sort of stepping up to a mile and a quarter, hopefully in time. The ground, he hasn't been on anything fast and good, so that's going to be something we're going to learn about on Tuesday. But his dad, he seemed to go on Mohara, seemed to go on anything, so he's a very similar type of horse to him, I think. But yeah, he's a beautiful horse. He's got a great temperament, and hopefully he'll step up to run a big race. We've also got a horse called Galeron in it, and we haven't really decided yet which race to go for with him. I'm quite keen to step him up to 10 furlongs, but the owners are pretty keen, I think, to maybe give it a go in this race. But we'll sort of find out a bit more in a couple of days, I think.
Just to fill people in at home, if you haven't got it in front of you, that's the St James's Palace we're talking about, and head of the market is Chaldean, 2000 Guineas winner at Newmarket, Irish Guineas winner Paddington, second favourite, Cicero's Gift, Charlie Hills's horse, third favourite, Mustabshir, who Jim is riding, fourth favourite, and then 7-1 bigger, the rest got Royal Scotsman also in there, Galeron 25-1 shot at the moment, Indestructible 25-1 shot. He won the Craven, didn't he, beating the Foxes. Mustabshir was behind him. That race behind has worked out very well so far, so 25-1 could be interesting, although he was disappointing in the Guineas. Let me go back to my Zoom screen. There we are. Anyone? Oh, Chief Mankato in the Coventry, Charlie Hills?
Chief Mankato, he's also I haven't worked him since he won, so I'm going to plan to do that tomorrow. If that goes okay, I think, you may as well give it a stab, I think.
Okay. Anyone else? Anything else?
Not filling us with a huge amount of confidence there, Charles. It is quite a hot race, to be fair. It's a very, very hot Coventry.
It's a long season after, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Shall we move on to day 2? On the Wednesday, the feature race is the Prince of Wales Stakes, which was shaping up to be a really good race. Obviously, Desert Crown has come out. I really need 2 computers on the go here. Okay, Prince of Wales Stakes. So the current favourite is Adayar. Luxembourg, well, they're actually co-favourites. My Prospero for William Haggis, third favourite, Bay Bridge in there, who is Ben Merritt's tip at 4-1. Simca Mil is a foreign raider. Dubai Honour for William Haggis. Emily Upjohn, 25-1. I think that's because she's not going there. Mostadaf when West Wind blows, etc. So nothing in there for the Charlies. And Jim, will be on Mostadaf?
Yeah, look, he's a very good horse. Obviously, he won in Saudi, and he absolutely demolished them out there. Probably wasn't the strongest of fields, but he loves fast ground, mile and a quarter. And then he went for the Shima Classic, and I followed Equinox round, and probably he didn't stay at that level against Equinox is an unbelievable horse, and I probably cost myself a place trying to lay up with him. Drop him back in trip, quick round. Listen, it's a very tough race. It's probably the toughest race all week. But he's a good horse, and conditions will suit. I'm sure he'll run well, but like I said, it's a very tough assignment.
Can you will help me out with Luxembourg? Because I thought he was so disappointing at the beginning of the year and then so impressive on his next start. I can't really decide whether to have confidence in him or not.
I think you've
slightly summed him up perfectly, haven't you? In that one little segment, I think you couldn't have said it any better.
But part of me thinks he's not very tough and not very committed, and then the next time you see him you think, oh, that was a really tough performance. So how can a horse be both things in 2 different runs?
I thought he very much got the run of the race in Ireland. I thought Ryan gave him a great ride last time. It's going to be harder now. obviously, Adios was very good, and obviously he, since the form has been franked, second horse has come out, won a Group 1. You have to respect him, and I do fancy Charlie's horse. I think he's a proper horse.
Adele, that's your pick.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Charlie Hills is
Yeah,
nodding.
I think like Jim. Yeah, I think Charlie's always thought so much of this horse, hasn't he? And beginning of the year, before he ran his first start, Charlie was full of confidence, wasn't he? And I think he's got a great chance. Yeah, I think he's a really good horse.
Other Charlie in agreement?
Yeah, I think my Prospero will run a big race. Maybe I thought he ran a huge race in the Lockinge. They knew that he wanted 10 furlongs. I think he's interesting. But yes, I think Adea is the class horse in the race. Charlie Appleby, another Charlie, has he's always been. He's a pretty good Dutch. I'd be happy to go with that.
Quite a lot's been made of the stable form there. I mean, they seem to have turned a bit of a corner recently, but how much should we be worried about that?
Well, they've had a good few days now, haven't they, recently? So I think.
But how does that work? Like, why does the stable suddenly go out of form and then suddenly bounce back to form? What actually is it?
I wish I knew.
I think it'd be a very easy gig training racehorses if we actually knew why. It just happens for some reason. And 9 times out of 10, it's got nothing to do with the health of the horses either, and it just isn't happening. I've had a couple of quiet runs, and you just every draw where you want a good draw, you get drawn in the car park, and it's amazing how it happens. And then all it takes is for one runner to click, and then suddenly just everything seems to fall in place again. It's I don't know how to explain it, but it just.
But as the public, are there things that we don't know? Like, could there be a bit of a virus going through the yard, or could it be sometimes like a bad batch of hay or something like that?
It can be, absolutely. It can be a bad batch of hay. This time of year is very challenging, I think, for horses. When all the grass, all the pollen's around, the grass pollens, the rape, and there's also, everything's flowering, and the horses do get sort of hay fever, so that can also affect them too.
Okay. Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, so everyone's pretty much in agreement on Adea, the Prince of Wales, and otherwise on the day, Charlie Hills. Have you got one in the Hunt Cup? When he's
going to run, yeah. Jim will going to put some cheek pieces on him, so Jim's going to get the muscles going. We worked him in. Yeah, he's not a bad horse. I think he's off quite a good mark, but he's been very disappointing on his 2 starts this year. Just hasn't been finishing off his races. So, we spent 2 years trying to settle him, and I think he's sort of taken the mickey out of us now. So, we'll try and put some cheap pieces on to concentrate him, and we'll see what happens. But also, he might a bit of any rain that comes will help him.
I've got his half brother who actually hasn't made the track yet, by See the Stars, 3 years old, and he's been a challenge.
Is he?
Challenge, yeah.
I think Roger had the other half brother, and he was a challenge too. So.
He is quirky as
I
hell.
love that challenge. It's so polite.
He's just on his way back actually picked up an injury in the spring. Why we haven't seen him yet. I think he's got ability, but he's just not for it.
But in the Hunt Cup, so I've done a bit of research. I say research. I was sat watching Harry's sports day yesterday, and conveniently David O'Mara also has a child in the same year. So I was chatting to him, and I was asking him about his chances for the week. And he said, despite having won a lot of the big mile handicaps, he's never won the Hunt Cup. And he's got a horse called Blue for You, who he thinks is super talented. We just haven't seen the best of him. He wears blinkers. He's a hold-up horse. The race should really suit. And he ran well behind Astro King at York, where he had a bad draw. So Blue for You, I also saw on the Racing Post that price-wise have tipped him up. So price might not be great, but there's one for people wanting to have a bet in that race. Jim, other rides on the day, on Wednesday?
I don't know, to be honest. Obviously, the handicaps entries aren't just out yet. So obviously, my main ride is in the Prince of Wales Stakes that day. So I'm not quite sure The Duke of Cambridge, I ride a filly for John and Thady called Shariah, who was 4th at Epsom the other day. She will be much suited better to Ascot than she will be Epsom. So, yeah, she'll run very well.
Where are you off to, Charlie?
Just what Eddie's just got a pizza going.
I love the interruptions. Harry needed his top button undoing.
Any charges?
What toppings? Can you fill us in?
Topping chicken and ham, I think, and pineapple.
Pineapple on a pizza is always a good thing, in my opinion.
Hang
on. Pineapple, really?
Love pineapple on a pizza, yeah.
Shock horror. Jim, can you indulge in a pizza every now and again?
Oh, yeah. My son literally lives on cheese pizza, I think. So I have to finish off what he doesn't want half the time.
Look at that.
He has pizza 7 days a week, 300 days a year, yeah.
That looks great.
Good.
Oof, look at
Pizza
that.
chef there. Charlie, don't get distracted. We've got another half an hour to go till you can have your pizza. Actually, Jim had a couple of questions about you and diet and weight and stuff. Julie Cleverly and Georgie Drews kind of asked similar questions. What's the bottom weight you can ride at on the... I don't know if this is general or pertaining to you. What's the bottom weight you can ride at on the flat and the top weight? And then also, what's your natural body weight and what is your daily diet?
All you need to know.
My natural weight, I'd say if I had 3 meals a day, would probably be 9'7", getting up to 10 stone. What's he doing now?
I've got no idea. It's quite distracting. I think he's charging his laptop. I'm not sure.
But I tend to keep my weight around about 8 stone 12. I've tried every single diet there is. From eating 7-8 times a day to eat nothing, and you have to do what works best for you. And I tend to now, I don't have breakfast, and I just have 1 meal a day, and that's usually in the evening. And I might have something small at the races, like a snack or something. But yeah, so my lowest riding weight would be, if I got given sort of a week's notice, I could probably do 8'7". And obviously, hard work sometimes.
One meal a day, though. I mean, lots of teas and coffees to kind of keep you going, or bits of fruit, or not even?
Black coffee, water, tend to stay off fizzy drinks and sugar and rubbish and stuff like that. And then once a week, if like on a Sunday, I'll give it a kick. I'll have a takeaway and eat what I want and have a few beers. And my valet every Monday puts me on my heaviest saddle. I think he just does it for fun. And I have to remind him that it's Monday. And but yeah, look, I'm very lucky. There's lads in the weighing room who are a lot bigger than me. And they really struggle. So I'm relatively lucky, I think.
Gosh, we must get used to it, but it must still be a struggle. There's a lot of chat going on here about the relative merits of pineapple on a pizza. It seems to be quite divisive. some pro, some anti. We don't want to hold you up too much longer, Charlie, before you get to go and have your pizza. Oh yeah, there's a question here about the mile at Ascot. There's a round mile and a straight mile, right? How and why do they decide which races run on which, and what's the difference?
I don't know how they decide which races are run on which, but I think they're very different tracks. Jim has ridden in numerous times, so he'd probably be able to give you a better answer than I would. But the straight one is it's basically as stiff as you get in the country, and the round track's a funny old track because I think it can be a bit of a front runner's track, can't it? The round one, it's for some reason I think it's often very hard to come from right out the back on the round track.
Yeah, it is. I think you'll see it like in the St James's Palace Stakes. It can be that start. It's quite a tactical mile round there. Obviously, a low draw is ideal, and if you're drawn, say 1 or 2, and you want to sit in mid division, you can encounter some traffic problems when you turn into the straight. And at Ascot, no quarters given. It's all right at another meeting, you might get a bit of room, but it can obviously be a little bit difficult sometimes. The straight course is much more easier to ride. They tend to always race up the middle 9 times out of 10 in the mile races anyway. unless it's a Hunt Cup where they'll split into 2, possibly 3 groups. But regards to riding each one, definitely the straighter mile is easier. You can make all in the mile on the straight course, but you've got to be able to dictate at your pace. Obviously, people tend to get racing a long way from home on the straight course. I always find jockeys kick for home a bit too early there, and it sets it up for the closers. And you'll see, hence why Jamie Spencer and a lot of jockeys, hold up jockeys, come and pick them off late. But it does suit horses coming from behind the straight course, that's for sure.
I mean, the round course, what sort of type of horse do you think you're better off over a mile? The horse that's got more speed, or a stamina horse?
Both, really. I mean, if you've got a horse with a turn of foot, it always helps. But like I said, it is a stiff uphill finish. You know, people don't realise actually when you turn in the stand at the 2 furlong pole, 3 furlong pole, you climb, and actually the last 100 yards you level out. Very rare you'll see a horse when he's in front at the half furlong pole get beat. Yeah. Because as soon as they hit the half furlong pole, they're downhill and away again. So, but they're both very different. You know, if you've got a horse who stays, you make the most of it on the round course. That's for sure.
It's quite a short straight, though, isn't it? The round.
What is it? 2.5 ish?
Yeah, about 2.5 straight.
So do you kind of need to get going before you're in the straight proper?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to win from off the too far background there. Even in a half race, when there's a lot of runners, i.e. a Ribblesdale or those sort of races, if you're too far back, it's on fast ground. It's difficult to get involved.
Okay, very interesting. Okay, so Wednesday relatively quiet for our trainers, unless I'm missing anything. Anyone got anything to add?
I have Atrium in the Hunt Cup.
Oh, you do? Sorry, missed that. Okay.
So, but he's actually been a little bit disappointing this year. We sort of came into this year thinking that he'd really go forward and pick up a big one, and he's thought he'd run a big race in the Lincoln, and the ground was probably too soft. And the same happened then in the Spring Cup. And then he ran okay the other day at Newbury, but they weren't very steady. The Hunt Cup should set up for him really nicely, because he needs a strong pace to aim at and a stiff mile. The only thing I would say is, again, a bit of a running theme with next week, he needs a little bit of cut in the ground. He wouldn't want it rattling quick. So I'm hoping for a little bit of rain for him. But if the ground came up sort of good to soft, I think he would have a really, really good chance, because he loves Ascot. He's got a very good record at Ascot, and the race will set really nicely for
him. John Jones asking if Charlie Hills has gone to the loo. Are we all sorted, Charlie?
I'm having right problems with my iPad.
Where are you now, out of interest?
In the shed.
In the shed. Okay. Fan blasting. It's not too hot in the shed. Is it all right?
I've got a fan on here. It's fine.
News. Okay. So shall we move on to Thursday? Gold Cup day. Ben Merritt's tip in the Gold Cup is Eldorado. Let me just get the field up. 1 second. Gold Cup. So favourite is Coltrane for the Baldings, 3-1. Well, Eldorado joint favourite. Emily Dickinson for Aidan O'Brien, third favourite. Got Broome in there also for him. Yabir for Charlie Appleby. Courage Mon Ami for the Gosdens. Subjectivist for the Johnsons. Echoes in Rain. Now, Trushan's an interesting one. Did you read the update from the stable or hear it about Trushan having said that they've discovered a bit of a wind issue with him, a soft palate issue, so they've had that dealt with. And if he's back to his best, I mean, admittedly, he probably wants a bit of cut in the ground as well, but he would be tempting at a bigger price, wouldn't he? Because it seems to be quite an open race this year.
Who's going?
Trushan would be better on a bit of cut in the ground, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Ideally. But he's a very good horse, isn't he?
It's a very open Gold Cup. It's a very open Gold Cup. I think everyone is waiting for something to stick their hand up and say, I'm the best stare around. I don't think Coltrane, although he's pretty, his record has been fantastic. I don't think Coltrane is he's not that exciting as a stayer, is he? I just feel like there's got to be something a little bit better than Coltrane around. What that is, I don't know. Whether Courage Mon Ami, he's a really interesting horse, very unexposed, very unlike the Gosdens to dump a horse like that in at the deep end.
Tell me a bit more about him, because I haven't really got to know
I
him.
actually know rather a lot about him because he's owned by the Oppenheimers, by Mr. and Mrs. Oppenheimer. He's a Frankel, very lightly raced. He's out of a mare called Crimson Ribbon, and I've actually trained 2 half sisters, both won listed races. And I think this is the 3rd out of the mare. And he won his maiden at Kempton, and it is a remarkable performance. He falls out the gates, is tailed off last, and comes around the whole of the field. I mean, it was a bad maiden, but comes around the whole of the field and wins going away. I mean, it was amazing. And he then he won at Goodwood the other day. Again, won very impressively. It looks like the further he goes, the better he gets. He's very unexposed. And it's interesting. The other one is Yabir, who's very talented. And if he stays the trip, could easily be the best horse in that race. But there's a bit of a if he stays the trip, I guess.
Yeah, he's a tricky one though, isn't he? I think he wants firm ground and a strong pace to aim at, and then you've got to catch him on his day because he's not always at his best.
But maybe he needs a strong pace because he's been running over slightly shorter than he wants in the longer trip. If he settles, he could love it because he is a quirky horse and doesn't do a stroke.
True.
I was quite impressed with the favourite, the way he, I thought on his last start he was sort of going to be out the back with the washing, and I was amazed how well he stayed on to be second.
The one I Broome, I think, providing he runs, I think he's a strong stayer. And obviously, look, there's people forget the Ascot Gold Cup is 2.5 miles. Every time I've watched him win, it looks like he can't go far enough for him. I think he'll definitely stay 2.5. I think he's going to run a massive race. And Yavir is the classy horse in the race, as Charlie was saying. Look, he's a Breeders' Cup winner, and if he stays, then he'll have a great chance. I think sometimes when they go in that gear slower, they do sometimes stay because if they're classy enough individuals and they don't really come out of top gear. But if it's run at a sound, solid pace and it's a true test, I think Broome will definitely be not far away.
My problem with Broome is that wasn't Emily Dickinson meant to be their Gold Cup horse the whole way through, and then she got beaten the other day, and suddenly it's now Broome. Well, would that not be a bit of a concern? The fact that they've always said Emily Dickinson is their Gold Cup horse, and now she's been beaten, and suddenly, we'll put Broome's our horse now.
I think Broome was always going to go for it. Look, he won in over 2 miles in Meydan. When I watched him over 1.6 miles around York, when he was third, he was behind. He was coming on again at the finish. He almost got a bit outpaced, and then he was staying on again. That was 1.6 miles. I honestly do think, having watched him run, I'm not saying he's a good horse. Did he win was it the Hardwick last year he won?
Yeah.
He's a proper horse. He shouldn't be underestimated. So
absolutely.
I don't think he'd be far away.
Of those that are at bigger prices, you've got a previous Gold Cup winner in St. who had a long time off. But we know he stays the trip if they've managed to get him back to his best. You've also got a Willie Mullins runner in the shape of Echoes in Rain, Cheltenham winner. And one that we've got a little story on ITV is Wise Eagle, who'd be a big outsider for trainer Adam Nicol, who I think doesn't have many horses, ex-jumped jockey. That would be a good story. So potentially it could set itself up for something for one of the outsiders. Jim, you haven't got a ride?
No, I'm just looking through there now. Look, I think everybody's going to be fixed up unless you're riding for Aidan O'Brien. I mean, I can't see any obvious spare rides going in that race, to be honest. But I don't think it's a strong race. I mean, do you know what? If I could ride one winner at Royal Ascot, it would be the Gold Cup. It's for me, it's the pick of the week. I got beaten ahead in it. I rode a filly called mare called Miss United for Michael Winters, and yeah, that was quite frustrating. But for me, it's a proper race.
Why? You like the distance angle, or you like the longevity of the race, or the name, or what is it?
Yeah, a bit of everything, really. I mean, for me, I don't know what the trainers will probably say, the Prince of Wales Stakes or the St James's Palace Stakes, but for me, the Ascot Gold Cup is the main one of the week for a jockey to win it. And obviously, it's something a bit different. It's 2.5 miles. It's a proper race.
Is 2.5 miles much more tiring to ride as a jockey than, say, 7 furlongs?
Not really. It depends. It all depends on the horse. If the horse is keen and he doesn't really give you a moment's peace, then yes, it's not easy. But the horse relaxes, gets into a nice rhythm. It's quite an easy race to ride. And I mean, obviously, I spent 10 years jumping before I went on the flat, and it's a different pace. Once you start going over 2 miles, it's a different pace, and you have to get into a rhythm. You have to get your horses to relax, and that's the key to those distance races. Really, I think that's why all the jump trainers dominate them so much. Just that the way they train, it just suits their horses,
Charlie Fellows, big day for you on Thursday. A lot of pressure.
What have I got on Thursday? Remind me.
Have you not got Gorak in the Buckingham Palace?
Oh, Gorak, what an unbelievable horse.
So tell us that whole story, because it's a good one.
It is quite a remarkable story. It is. He is the most remarkable. I think he probably is the most remarkable horse I've ever trained. We bought him for 26 grand, I think, at the horse training sale. Rated 73. I love the horse training sale. It's a lot of fun, and I have a little team that do it, and we try and pick out horses that we think that's maybe something's missing, that needs a change of scenery, or they got the trick wrong, or something like that. And one of the guys in our group that does it with me was absolutely mad keen on this horse, and we felt that he's by a stallion called Gokhan, who's a sprinter, and we thought that he would be running over too far. Anyway, we dropped him back, and he'd been working really, really well at home. And he went to Wolverhampton off 73, and my lads must have had a fortune on it. And it got beaten. It got stuffed. It didn't just get beaten, he got beaten outside. And I couldn't really explain why. And he looked disappointing on the all-weather, and then switched to turf. And since he switched to turf, he's just flown. And he's owned by 39 Aussies, of which is headed up by a guy called Jason Richardson, who is the Ed Chamberlain of Australian racing. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Maybe a bit. He's very, like, he does look
a bit more kind of like loud.
yeah. I meant more as in his position as but he's the most lovely guy. And I met him going down there with Prince of Arran, and he's always said, I want to have a horse with you at some stage. And we bought this thing together, and ever since he won by like 10 lengths at Donny on bottomless ground on Lincoln Day. And his mark went up to 83. And ever since that day, he's been going on, Pete, do you think we can get into Royal Ascot? Can we get him into Royal Ascot? And if we run there, can we get... And this horse, he's run 10 times this year already. Since January, he's run 10 times.
Has he?
Yeah. I mean, and I promise you, he comes out of his box the next day, having run for the 10th time, and pulls his way up Warren Hill, and still looks like he hasn't run in 6 months. Anyway, he won at Haydock the other day, but he didn't win by enough to get up enough. So he went up to 86, which was £10 short of where we needed to be to get into the Buckingham Palace. And I'd sort of slightly given up hope of him getting in. And I was entry tracking on the Monday before Haydock last weekend. And I noticed that the Haydock John of Gaunt stakes came up really light. And there was only about 8 entries, of which, when I looked through the race, 3 or 4 of them only wanted soft ground, which they weren't going to get. Anyway, I rang Jason up, said, look, it's a completely bonkers idea, but we could stick him in a Group 3. And if he runs a half-decent race, and because he's so consistent and always runs a good race, I think he will run a good race. We might run well enough to get our mark up. They said, yeah, go for it. Anyway, the he went and finished 4th, beaten 2 lengths by horses rated 109, 115, and 112, and we were rated 86. And so, having thought that I was going to have to ring the handicapper yesterday to say, please, can you put this horse up enough to get into the Buckingham Palace? I've got 39 Aussies who really want to go. I then was begging him not to put me up too much because he was going to put us up to 107. And I was like, you can't do that. The race is a 0 to 105. I won't be able to run in it. Please give me 105. Which, in my opinion, is still too much, but he ended up getting 105. So he's now going to get a run in it. So he's gone up from 73 to 105 and is now running at Royal Ascot. And they're all flying over for it.
No, I was going to say, how many of the 39 overexcitable Aussies are coming?
I think quite a few. From what I can work out from the WhatsApp group, which has been quite hectic recently, as far as I can work out, there's quite a few people coming over. It'll be a lot of fun. It's great. But he's blown his handicap mark, and it'll be a very tough ask off top weight.
Yeah,
but it's
great
fun.
Story, though.
And he was a 26 grand buy. Fantastic.
That's great. Well, we'll be keeping an eye on Gorak on Thursday, but we'll be probably paying a bit more attention to Racing Breaks rider. He goes in the Britannia, confirmed, Charlie?
Yeah, I'd say so. Definitely. It's either that or the Jersey, but I think the Britannia would be better. He's won his last 4 starts, and he's gone up an enormous amount as well. So he's off 97 now. So that's going to be a big ask as well. Any rain that comes will be massively welcome for him. But it was great. His last race was probably by far his best, which is good to see. Jim, you rode him for your first time out, I think, at York, and you liked him there.
Yeah, he gave me a good feel that day, and he's just a little bit keen, enthusiastic. He just wants to get on with it, but he's got plenty of ability, and like I said, even that maiden he ran in at York that day is always a good race. And he ran a lovely race that day, and obviously then he followed up at Brighton, and then obviously he just keeps progressing, and there's no reason why he won't keep progressing as well.
He just had that bit of buzziness from when he come from a breeze up sail, and he just wanted to run as fast as he could for 2 furlongs for a bit, and I think racing's done him the world of good.
I think we might have just frozen. Shall I take over? Racing's done him the world of good. He's improved with each start. He's learned to settle a bit better with each race. And what's remarkable is that despite pulling a bit early, he manages to have plenty in the tank in the closing stages. And he was better behaved in his most recent start, where he led. So I wonder if the tactics might be similar, but in a big field handicap like that might be tricky. If you're tossing up, Charlie Fellows, as a trainer, if you're tossing up like a handicap the Britannia compared to the Jersey, for example, what would you be looking at? What were you thinking about?
I think you'd enter in both and then have a look at the Jersey and see what you're up against. And if you've got £20 to find on something in the Jersey and there's a horse rated 115 in there, then you probably think, we're better off going in a handicap here. Okay. Whereas if it looks like a weak Jersey, then and you think that the Jersey would suit your horse better, then you've got a big decision to make. But the Jersey, it will always be a hot race. It's always won by a good horse. Charlie Appleby wins it regularly, and I'd say it's nigh on a Group 1 on paper pretty much every time you run in it.
Okay. I'm conscious of time because we're running out. Jim, rides on Thursday. What have you got penciled in?
Thursday. Hang on, I just need to have a look now. What's the main race of the day? Thursday. Oh, my mate.
Oh, yes, exactly.
He's in the Hardwick. Honestly, he's.
Is the Hardwick Thursday? No, it's not. I hope it's not Thursday.
Hang
Sorry?
on.
What day is the Hardwick?
The Hardwick's Saturday. I really hope it's Saturday because I'm working my Hardwick horse tomorrow, and I'm pretty sure it's all been planned because it's on Saturday. So
I'm glad you guys still question this because I feel like I have to look at it all the time. Which races? Which day?
it's, yeah, you're right, Thursday. I'm not quite sure what rides I've got yet. I mean, Ribblesdale that's Wednesday. There is talk at the filly of John's maybe being supplemented, who won at Goodwood the other day. That's always a possibility.
Oh, the really smart looking one.
The really smart looking one, yeah. So
what's her name again? Al-Asifa.
Al-Asifa.
Definitely got people talking, hasn't she?
Yeah, she looks like she could be very, very good. But that's only a possibility. I have to see how she comes out of the race and stuff like that. But if
Can I just say, I'm going to say something slightly controversial here. He did look very impressive, but it was an awful listed race.
I agree.
The stuff that behind you was really moderate, because most of the fillies are waiting for Royal Ascot. But that said, I'm not thinking anything. She was very impressive, but it was not a good listed race at all.
Jim's ridden a lot of very good horses, so he can tell us just how good she is.
I think she's very good. I mean, I couldn't agree more with Charlie, what he said. It was a terrible race. Well, you say it was a terrible race. The second filly I'd ridden for Kirsten Rousing, and she is actually quite a nice filly. She pulled very hard and was beaten 9 lengths in the Musidora behind Soul Sister. Obviously, I'd like to think that my filly, if she'd have run in the Musidora, would have gone very, very close. I think she's. Look, I can only go on what I sat on, but I got the feeling of her. She's a proper top class filly. She's bred to be. There's nothing you could say that you can't like about her. So she's with the right people, and yeah, she's very exciting.
So possible Ribblesdale, you said? For
it's a possible. I don't know. It's quite a quick turnaround, but she didn't have a race the other day, and I'm sure connections. We'll see how she is this week.
The good news is Charlie's back to the outside location. Did you manage to sneak in a pizza on the way?
No, I don't know what's happened. Wi-Fi's gone down. I'm on my phone now.
Bloody technology. Who's head of IT there? Right. Okay. I think we should probably move on to Friday. And Charlie Fellows, was I reading that you've got something? Was it running today? Have I got the right race? Tawala?
No, it runs tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Okay.
Runs tomorrow and needs to win to get into the Holyrood House, which is the 5 furlong handicap. But the winner of the race last year won this Kempton race. He runs at Kempton tomorrow night. I've actually got 2 in the race, but he's drawn in the car park. He's drawn 11 of 11 over 6 around Kempton, which doesn't make things overly easy.
Okay, but
had he had a good draw, I would have really fancied him tomorrow at Kempton. Then we would have gone to Ascot. But he's got to win, because I don't think his mark will be high enough.
Okay, that's on Friday potentially. But you've also got Marban in the Commonwealth Cup, who's a big price. Chances?
I think he is a big price. I thought he ran a blind at Salisbury. Charlie had one in the race where he just got trapped on the rail a little longer than we'd hoped for, and he ran on, but Henry Candy's horse got first run on us. I think that was a really good listed race. Definitely not a listed race. It was a group race and everything but name. And the Commonwealth Cup is a very, very, very strong race this year. Little Big Bear was incredibly impressive the other day, albeit there was probably the biggest bias we've seen on a race course this season anyway, at Haydock that day, because if you were on that rail, you won. And the horse of Richard Hannon's that was second in the race is no superstar and was only a length and a half behind it. So you can question the form slightly. I think Sakir is very interesting of Roger Varian's, but possibly wants a bit of cut in the ground. Lezu is slightly out of form, but dropping back in trip could be good. It's a very strong race, but I think my fella goes into it with as good a form. Yeah, he's a Group 2 winner at Goodwood. I think the run at Salisbury last time out was huge, and I think he's very much still learning to be a sprinter. And I think the Salisbury race, I love the way he travelled through the race. And I think Ascot will suit him better than Salisbury. So, look, he's a very lively outsider. I think you can get 50 to 1 in places. He is not going to go off 50 to 1 on the day. No chance.
Okay, that's in the Commonwealth Cup, which, like you say, is a cracker of a race, but also a great race is the feature race, the Coronation Stakes, where you get a lot of the Guineas fillies reappearing. So you've got at the head of the market Tahira, who won the Irish Guineas, who was previously beaten in the English version by Maud. You've got Meditate in their third favourite, Queen for You for the Gosdens, and then Electric Eyes is interesting for Carl Burke. She looked good as a 2-year-old, but we haven't seen her yet this year. Sounds of Heaven for Jessie Harrington, Never Ending Story, and the rest. Battle again of the Guineas winners. Who's in the Tahira camp and who's in the Maud camp, or who would be on something else?
For me, it's really boring, but I'd be Tahira. And I mean, Marge is very good at Newmarket, isn't she? She seems to love that track. And I think Dermot Weld was always saying that the race has come a little bit too soon for her, for the English Guineas. And I just feel, I thought she had the best form as a 2-year-old, and she looks like she's certainly trained on. And I think they've all got to beat her really to win it.
Charlie?
I actually would be in the Morge camp. I think she beat Tahira fair and square at Newmarket. I think the softer the ground, the more Dermot's filly. I think it slightly depends on the ground. I think on better ground, I'd be in the Morge camp. On softer ground, I'd maybe be slightly swaying towards Tahira. But I thought Morge beat her fair and square at Newmarket, and she didn't exactly demolish the field in the 1,000 Guineas over in Ireland. I'd be siding with Maud. I think she's done nothing wrong.
Jim, you can have the casting vote or something else.
I think Tahira will win. I actually disagree. I think she's better on better ground. I'll be going for her. I think, I think she'll turn the tables back on Maud, yeah.
And sorry, Charlie Hills, we got cut off when you were talking about Racing Bricks Rider, and just because I think a lot of people on here to know about him. So we think you'll probably look at both races, Britannia and Jersey, correct?
And Jersey, yeah, I'd certainly prefer to go for the Britannia. We probably have got, we're already 97. I'd like probably for a few pound less. I think it's going to be hard to win off 97, with a few of those improving 3-year-olds coming through off 91, to give them weight, it's going to be difficult. But if the rain comes, which, there's meant to be showers throughout the week, and if that comes, that will help our cause. And, he seems a good form at home. So, and I think I got cut off, but I was saying, when 3-year-olds start to improve like he is doing, you don't know quite where that's going to end. And let's hope he can still keep improving.
Fingers crossed. Tactically, where do you think he will be in the race?
I'd like to, he doesn't really want to be up there being too positive because, it's a hard place to be making a running or be on the pace. It's a stiff old mile that is for 3-year-olds. And so I think just like to try and find a few bums, really.
Right. Okay. Sorry. Carry on.
No, so I was just saying, we're probably just try and hold him up and be as patient as we can with him. Okay.
I'm also currently spinning through the entries to see, have you got one in the King Edward VII?
Myself, we lose your wad. He's not going to run there. I think we'll probably run him in the Golden Gate.
Okay.
He wouldn't be good enough for that.
Okay. And King of Steel's rocketed to the top of the market there, the second in the Derby. It's quite interesting. Makes that race a bit more.
Yeah, correctly. Good horse, eh?
Yeah. Did you see him at Epsom?
Amazing, yeah. Big horse, isn't he?
Big horse. Big, kind of unfurnished looking horse, but seemed to handle Epsom very well on only, his third start. Impressive. Really.
Big ask after such a long time off, and then running in a Derby, running such a big race. That's a big ask to then back up at Royal Ascot.
Yeah. Is that what they call the bounce factor?
Yeah, big time.
Okay. Anything else for Friday, Jim?
Not that I can see. No.
No? Okay.
What races are there? What's Friday?
I will. What races are there? See, I'm really glad that all you experts struggle as well to know which races are which day. Friday, the Albany, the Commonwealth Cup, Duke of Edinburgh, Coronation, Sandringham, King Edward VII, Palace of Holyrood House.
I know Jim wants to run a horse in that race. But
Which one?
there's a horse called Rabba. With,
But we're not
he-
going to York.
Pardon?
We're going to go to York.
We're going to go to York
Good man.
York when?
on Saturday.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I'm doing York on Saturday. Which horse? Which race? Rabba.
There's the 3-year-old handicap. It's a very valuable 3-year-old handicap, 6 furlongs,
Okay. Great.
called Rabba.
Okay. I'll keep an eye out. Where are we? Okay, so Saturday, trying to also like pepper some questions in, but if I've missed them, Ed might have to do that for me later. Because we've still got a bit of preview to do. So the big race on Saturday is the newly named Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee Stakes, in memory of the late Queen. Sandrine is Ben Merritt's tip, trained by Andrew Balding. And I should just get the field up so I can spin you through the leading chances. 1 second. Really need 2 computers. Here we go. Sorry about the background noise, but you can hear that. So the favourite is actually the Aussie Raider, Artorias. And then you got the Hong Kong Raider, Wellington, second favourite, followed by Highfield Princess. Who knows if she'll go there. Kinross, Rohan, Art Power, Sacred, Alsa Hale, Sandrine at 14-1. Cardham for Charlie Hills, 16-1. For Dream, 33-1. Are the Aussies, Aussie and Hong Kong horses? Well, we think Highfield Princess might not go here. And after her is the local contingent relatively weak, which is why we've got the Aussie and the Hong Kong horse at the top, or am I reading that wrong?
Is Ken Ross running, is he?
Oh, don't know.
Would he'll be ground dependent, won't he? He wants cutting the ground.
Yeah, he has one on fast ground at York.
Yeah.
Is he not a bit of a 7 furlong specialist?
Yeah, but then he won
He won the champion sprint, didn't he?
Sprint,
Over
yeah.
6.
Power.
What do we make of the foreign raiders?
I don't know.
Artorias was with us last year, and he's staying in my yard again this year. And I think the feeling in the camp is that he is in better form this year than he was last year. I think they're really happy with his preparation. He looks fantastic. And I think he stays the 6 really well. So he's very interesting. Wellington, I don't know as well. But
I can tell you a bit about Wellington. I was in Hong Kong recently. He was basically a very good sprinter there. He won a lot of Group 1s, a lot of the big races. But since a horse called Lucky Swain S has come along, he's slightly been knocked off his perch. He'd be of an age-ish, but when I spoke to Richard Gibson, the trainer, about him, he said, well, you know, we might not be the best in Hong Kong, but even at the level we're at, because it's a very high level, he says, as sprinters in Hong Kong, that we'd be good enough to compete in a Group 1 English sprint. That was his take.
I guess the concern with that is that the sprints in Hong Kong are so different. It's they're flat track, round a bend, sharp as anything. Whereas you come to Ascot, 6 at Ascot is just a completely different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
Artorias really suits it because he's a proper grinder. Whereas a horse like Wellington, there's just so many, like, you don't know if the track will suit or if he'll handle it. It's just completely different to what he's used to.
Jim,
It's a very open race, isn't it? I mean, Rohan, he's got some great course form, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was really disappointing behind us at Salisbury last time out. And before the race, I'd heard a little murmur that he was not firing at home. at all. Yeah, he's got a very good course form, but I'm not quite convinced he's as good as. I'm not sure he's firing at the moment, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
Jim, do you have a ride? Or who would you want to ride?
Do you know what? There's one horse in there I've always liked, and you might think I'm mad, but I really like Art Power. I mean, it seems to me like he only seems to win at the Curragh, but he's built like an absolute brick, you know what? And he's a lovely horse, and he was very impressive last time. I just got the impression that maybe in years gone by they've made too much use of him, and I just think maybe it could just hang on to him a little bit. You know, he's a classy horse, and I could see him running really well. I agree with Charlie about Kinross. You know, obviously he's better with a bit of dig in the ground, but I don't know. I just like Art Power, and I think I could see him winning one of these races someday.
Okay. Charlie, not Charlie, Jim, just quickly, what will it be like in the weighing room with Frankie in his last year at Royal Ascot?
It depends. If he's winning, you can hear him quite a lot, and if he's having a quiet run, then the bottom lip and he sits in the corner, you don't hear a peep out of him. So
that was last year, right? Because things didn't go right for him last year, did they?
Not too many winners, not in the races I'm in. But no, listen, he's brilliant. I always get on well with Frankie, and he's been very good to me. He's been brilliant for racing. It'd be sad. Now, you know, it will be sad. You know, everybody looks up to him. He's probably one of the best jockeys in the world, if not the best. It'd be strange without him. Yeah, we'll miss him when he's gone, you know, for sure.
Definitely. And just to round out Saturday, Charlie Hills, you've got, like you said, lose your wad in the Golden Gates. And is it Orazio in the Wokingham?
Yeah, I got Orazio. He's going to run in the Wokingham. Been very pleased with his last couple of works. He's moving well, and he looks in good nick. Any rain that comes through the week will help him. And you know, we've been looking back from this race for a long time, so things couldn't have gone better, really. You know, winning his 2 starts this year. He's pretty unexposed, but you know, up 102. Yeah, if he wins, he's got to go. He's got to be a group horse. So you know, that's what we've got to find out.
Okay. We'll probably have Ed popping up in a minute, but just before he does, I'll try and get through a couple of the questions here. We've got a question from John, who likes to go to the Ebor Festival each year from Northern Ireland, and he wondered if either Racing Breaks rider or Fits Perfectly might be entered for any races during York to work out his travel plans and his racing plans.
I've been told by Ed that the horse has to run at York Ebor meeting.
Okay.
I know I love York, so if there's a race for Fits Perfectly, we'll be running there. It's a great track and fantastic prize money.
Yeah, I think there's no race less than 100,000. Is that right? At the Ebor meeting?
That's excellent, isn't it? Fantastic. Yeah.
Well, Ascot's the same, actually. No race less than 100,000. Record prize money this year, 9.5 million. A lot of the Group 1s have gone up in value as well. Okay, so that's positive. And then I'm trying to think of more general questions. This is quite a good one. Ed Rooney asks, is there a physical difference between a sprinter and a stayer? Charlie Hills?
Well, probably there is, yeah. I mean, sprinters are normally, you know, a lot more thicker set, whereas stayers can be a bit more lean, I suppose.
Yeah, good summary. And from Teresa Green, when would you give your runner their last gallop before a race?
Can't believe you've fallen for that one again. Jesus, come on.
Teresa Green? What?
Trees are green.
Oh,
Green.
That's actually right below bend over. What?
Yeah.
Teresa Green. Oh yeah. At least it's not as rude as.
I mean, it might be a real name, but I'm pretty sure that's not a real name.
Regardless, it's quite a good question. Then does everyone do it a bit differently, or is it roughly like a week before the race?
I actually wasn't concentrating on the question. What was the question?
When do you give the horses last piece of work before a race?
It depends what day they're running, I guess. If they're running at the end of the week on Saturday, they might have a little blow earlier, so Tuesday or Wednesday. Grand Alliance is due to run on Saturday. He's doing a proper piece of work tomorrow on the grass, and then he'll have just a nice light blow early next week, and that put spot on for Saturday.
Oh yeah, wait, he's in the Hardwick. I've missed that one.
Yeah, I know, but I'm hoping the ground's too quick and Hookham doesn't run, because Hookham will be very, very difficult to beat if he turns up.
But does your horse want quickish ground?
Well, he should have won the King Edward last year on a road. So I don't think he really cares what the ground is. He doesn't care about anything. It's just what mood he's in when he turns up to the races.
Is he just quirky?
At home, he is the most straightforward horse you'll ever train. And it's like he has a brain transplant when he goes to the races, and then just a completely different horse turns up. At home, he is the most straightforward horse. You could put a 5-year-old kid on him and he'd go straight as an arrow. He'd lead a gallop. You go to a race course and he's just, changes personality.
Okay. Just to spin through the Hardwick, because it's a Group 2, but I always think of it as a Group 1 on the Saturday. Yeah, it's a biggie. So you've got Hookham there at the top of the market. Free Wind, who was a very good winner at York last time. Pile Driver, first run of the season. Dover Legend, likewise. Adayar, who probably won't go there. Ardacan from Marco Botti, and bigger the rest. Jim, Hookham wants a little bit of give in the ground, right?
I think he's better with giving the ground. I think if you could get generally good ground, look, he won on Good to Firm, he won on Dubai and Good to Firm, but for me, he's just a different animal altogether with a bit of juice in the ground. I wasn't surprised.
You don't need a Group 2. He's too good. Why don't you just go and win a Group 1, for Christ's sake? What are you doing running him in a Group 2? It's a waste of time.
Because he's already entered in it, and it's Royal Ascot.
You want to make a stallion, surely. You're not going to make a stallion by winning the Hardwick, for Christ's sake. Go on.
He's got to run, and look, he's not in the Prince of Wales Stakes. But I mean, if the Prince of Wales Stakes, you knew you were going to get cut to the ground. If you knew, I think he'd have a great chance in that. To be honest, I wasn't surprised what he did at Sandown last time. I think he's a better horse this year than he's ever been. So. For me, hopefully, it is a bit of juice in the ground and he turns up, because it'd be my best ride all week.
Not what?
Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic to hear.
Ed, cooking done?
Well, I just thought it's a nice little pause. Have we got time for one question to each of the panelists from the original list, or are we rushing towards the winning post? Jim, I'm really nervous of these names now. So I might not say who they come from, because Teresa Trees is fantastic. Or Green, whatever. So I'm not going to say who it came from. It came from whoever I say it seems fine. Jim, do you have any pre-race routines, rituals, or superstitions?
No, not really. No, I'm not superstitious. I'll say that. I've one tie I always like to wear, but other than that, not really. No, I'll go for if I get to Ascot, I'll always have a run around the track before racing.
What day are you going to wear that tie, Jim?
Every day.
Every day.
But no, I'm not superstitious really in any way apart from that tie. That's it.
And what's the tie look like, so that we know?
It's a nice red Hermes tie.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Charlie Hills, one for you from Carl Charles. Sounds okay. Will Racing Breaks rider get further than a mile later on in the season? And are you thinking of the Cambridgeshire or a group race or something like that?
I think the Cambridgeshire would be a nice race to plan for. But I think that's as far as he would get. He's just got to give himself every chance to get further. He's out of a Monjou mare, so he could do, but he just doesn't give himself. He's just so enthusiastic, and he wears his heart on his sleeve, and I think a mile probably is his trip.
And fun enough, someone else asked on either the chat or the Q&A about running at Newmarket, and forgive my ignorance here, but is the Bunbury Cup over the July course?
July course, yeah, 7 furlongs.
do have an entry there.
We
Paul.
do, yeah. And you know, 3-year-olds do have a good record in that race.
Cool, thank you. And then Charlie Fellows, Giles Turner sounds like he's real. What do you consider the best sales for purchase of an equine superstar? Where would you really go with all those? I mean, given that we went to Doncaster Breezes for Fitzpatrick and stuff, where did you go and buy? Where does the superstar get bought?
Tassels, book one. All the best pedigrees. All it's the creme de la creme. Would you agree, Charlie? Yeah.
I would, yeah. I mean, we've always had quite a bit of success out of Goffs as well in Ireland. So, but I find them too expensive in book one.
They are very expensive.
What sort of? I mean, given this came up in our meeting with Cheska this morning, the little project that we haven't announced yet. What's the sort of bracket of yearlings in the book one, sir?
Well, and I mean, you can buy one for 30 grand. I've got a filly that I paid 40 odd grand for that is actually very nice, but just was quite backward and fell through some holes. And then anything up to $1 million, 2 million,
Yeah.
2 million. What was the top lot last year? I can't remember. 2 million.
Probably more, was it?
Yeah, possibly even more. Yeah.
It's actually often it's not a bad sale, like Charlie says, to try and find one that falls through the cracks, because all the big players are there wanting to buy the big pedigrees and the big horses and all that. So if something like doesn't make it onto the list with those categories, you can pick things up. Like the Mariscottis are very good at buying like staying type,
yeah.
40, 50 grand as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, you can buy some fillies there as well. You know, fillies got some good value, haven't they? Nice residual value, good pedigrees. You can accept a few faults and play the long game, really.
I'm glad this is being recorded because obviously I'll need all these notes later. I think. Thank you very much, everyone. I think we've sort of drawn. We've drawn to an end. We will send all our watchers and listeners and the rest of it a list of everybody's tips, I guess probably on the morning of each day's racing. So thank you very much for that. Obviously, thank you very, very much, Cheska and Jim and Charlie Fellows and Charlie Hills. I roared, Charlie, thank you very much for a good look around your shed and the pizza oven and everywhere else. I mean, I just...
Well, my loo.
I thought I was laughing at in the village because it carries across the pond. I know, but I was it was brilliant. So, and you know, this is clearly how we need to do these in the future: is have a good look around people's houses while this is going on. It was fantastic. Thank you again, JM Finn. You sponsor these, and all the JM Finn people for being there, and all the guys at Old Gold Racing who put this who've done all the promotion and sitting behind the scenes right now. But and thank you everyone who's sat and watched. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Charlie, am I going to see you tomorrow night? I think possibly. I know Tim. Watching. I'll see you. Then. We'll be in Lambourne. We'll be at the Pheasant.
We've got the Aussie jockey with us.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. So look forward to that. Everybody have a lovely Royal Ascot and a successful Royal Ascot, and you all have winners and commentate the right way or whatever you have to do. Your various different things. I don't know, Cheska, if you want to wrap things up, but thank you, everybody.
No, I mean, Charlie did just mention the Aussie jockey, James McDonald, who I did want to ask him about, but I'm sure we'll hear lots about James next week, who's riding Gorak as well, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is great.
So J-Mac will be front and centre next week, old friend of the Hillses, so it'll be good to see him. And no, looking forward to a big week. I missed it last year, so looking forward to being back. And it looks like the sun's going to be shining, and hopefully we're going to have another really top class week of racing. And Racing Breaks Riders going to win, and we're all going to celebrate. So can't wait.
Everybody, thank you very, very much, and enjoy the rest of your evenings.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.